So the first challenge that we encounter is that of empowerment without wisdom. Now I want to be careful and define that word wisdom because I think many of us mistake wisdom for knowledge. There's a difference between these two words. You see, knowledge is understanding or knowing that a tomato is a fruit, right? Maybe you thought it was a vegetable, maybe that's news to you, I don't know, but I remember learning that somewhere in grade school that tomatoes are fruit. Wisdom, however, is understanding that a tomato does not belong in a fruit salad. Right? You know, not along tomatoes and cantaloupe. You don't want to, you know, that doesn't sound good, right? You want to make sure that you understand which fruits go in. That's wisdom. You see, when we take knowledge and apply it, we end up with wisdom. And that's where we're noticing a huge deficiency in this generation. You see, what we're discovering is that this generation is overexposed to information far earlier than they're ready. If you remember back, at the turn of the century, 100 years ago, actually for all of time until recently, every piece of information a student got came from an adult in their life. And then eventually came books, and books would give them information, but only the books that were accessible. This generation is growing up with unfiltered, oftentimes, but complete access to the world's information, all of it, right in the palm of their hand. And so they know so much well before they're ready. However, we also know that they are underexposed to firsthand experiences, remember that word that creates wisdom, far later than they're ready. You see, we have a generation that's growing up exposed to all the information, but they're not exposed to all the application. They don't get the opportunity to try out that knowledge in real-world circumstances. Their entire world is virtual. Think about this, all their interactions. Today's empowered student, they enjoy virtual reality through headsets and screens. Real reality? Boring. Let me go into virtual reality. They also explore virtual relationships through social media. It's like a relationship, only way easier because you can ghost people, you can block people, you can unfriend people, you can distance yourself, you can think for 15 minutes and craft the perfect response or comeback. It's not real life, it's real life light. We look at, they achieve virtually. They get virtual progress by winning a video game. They go through these levels that are pre-programmed and feel like they've achieved something, and it's no wonder when they graduate from high school and then graduate from college, they wonder why the next level of the game fails to load. And they don't know what the next step is in the next place because every step has been laid out. The path has been prepared for the child instead of the child for the path. We notice that they experience virtual thrills at a theme park. They make virtual connections on the internet. They produce virtual results through quizzes and exams. Their whole life is a simulation. The thing that kind of happens because of that is that we find that these students are biologically advanced. Whether it's nutrition or hormones, we don't know, but their bodies are developing earlier now than they did in previous generations. Along those same lines, cognitively, as we've said, they're advanced. They're able to understand things we never would have understood and do things we never would have had the opportunity to seek out. But to get the experience, the real hands-on experience, they're just not getting the opportunities. And so they're emotionally behind. They don't know how to process those setbacks. They don't necessarily know how to process those difficulties. So many of those opportunities that would have been a learning experience turn into a roadblock in their life. And they're faced with the difficult feeling of knowing so much, but feeling prepared to do so little. And it produces this superficial arrogance sometimes, but a deep-seated fear and anxiety that they just don't have what it takes. See, they're socially behind, they're emotionally behind, but they're cognitively and biologically advanced, and so we make the mistake oftentimes of seeing the surface and thinking that there's maturity below it. But maturity only comes from wisdom, which only comes from those experiences. There's no correlation between giftedness and maturity. There just isn't. The best way adolescents gain wisdom is by doing, not just by listening. They got to get their hands involved for it to become something actionable, memorable, influential, and impacting. That's where that knowledge turns into wisdom and ultimately maturity. So the 4 stages of life, what does this look like for a leader, for a parent, for an adult in a student's life? Well, if we do this thing, I don't know, the way that you say the experts would say is maybe most appropriate. You start out as a micromanager. The first 6 years of their life, you're telling them everything to do and exactly how to do it, and you're doing it alongside of them the whole time. But then, 6 through 12, the next 6 years, you kind of turn into a manager. I'm in that phase with one of my kids now, and we're teaching her how to, put away her clothes and how to fold them. We're telling her how to brush her teeth and how to, take care of her body and how to do all the things she's got to do, and she's learning. I'm her manager. But then I also have a son who's 14. He's in this next stage. I'm his supervisor. He knows how to do it. He just doesn't want to. So it's my job to make sure that I check in with him regularly, make sure it gets done right. But you see, if we do those 3 phases adequately, we do it successfully, then what ends up happening is we find ourselves in this 4th stage, and it's the most beautiful one. From 18 to 24, when we get to take the seat of a consultant. When our students or our children come to us, not because they have to, but because throughout these other 3 phases, we have been such a source of not information, of interpretation, that they seek us out voluntarily to get not our wisdom or our knowledge, to get our wisdom. And when we can find that seat off the stage, and instead as a guide on the side, we get to see all the fruit from all those many years of micromanaging, managing, and supervising, so that we can experience the incredible joy every leader deserves to feel, which is watching your leaders produce leaders who produce leaders. And that's how this movement continues.